So welcome to our IEP Mini Series presentation, where we're breaking down in a sort of quick and concise format sections of the IEP and related documents. We hope you can follow along with the annotated copies that were sent out to you. You can access them also on Patent. It's a great website for parents and families, and we'll also send you copies of the slides after this, and we'll have this recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can refer to that in the future. And we're also always available for any questions that you have beyond this in the future. It's a lot of information, and we're going to try and make it as easy to access as possible. So save your questions to the end. You can put them in the chat. And we hope you can join us in some future sessions as well. They take place on the first Thursday of the month at 12 noon, and they'll cover different sections of the IEP. Next month, we will have SDIs of the IEP. Okay, so the IEP Breakdown Series presented by the ARC of Northeastern Pennsylvania's Advocacy Department, and that is Mandy Colville, Roseanne Plishin, and myself, Katie Foley. And this week's, we are talking about goals. So what are goals? So the goals should focus on present levels of achievement. Your child's IEP goals should be reviewed and updated annually. The goals should focus on helping your child succeed in school subjects and with everyday life skills, such as socializing. Once a new IEP goal is set, the IE team decides what supports and services are going to help your child to reach those goals. What do those goals look like? Well, for instance, academic goals are going to focus on present levels of academic achievement, and they should focus on your child's strength. So what can we build off of? They might pertain to reading fluency, comprehension, math functions, word problems, writing, academic skills. Social emotional goals, they might be a great starting point to help the child who needs improvement in something like social skills. Social emotional IEP goal, it might make it possible for an educator to support mental health of their students who might be a high-risk learner. Some behavioral goals might start by setting specific behavior goals. They might begin with functional behavior assessment and create a behavioral intervention plan. They could focus on social emotional IEP goals that might have to do with anxiety or social skills. Behavior management goals might focus more on staying on task, completing assignments, participating in class discussions, participating in small group activities, and interacting positively with classmates. Those are just some behavioral IEP goals that might be in place. Other goals might pertain to transition. Transition would take place at the age of 14 in Pennsylvania. Other states, it might be age 16, which is the federal. You would begin transition discussions at the age of 14. Those transition goals might pertain to post-secondary expectations, independent living, employment, and that would be something, again, that you discuss around the age of 14. Goals could also pertain to related services such as speech, OT, physical therapy. Speech goals might include both receptive and expressive language goals. So for instance, if your child struggles to comprehend a passage that had been read to them, you might need a receptive language goal. For he or she might be struggling with auditory processing. So next slide. What are the objectives of these goals? So goals should be clear and measurable. The objectives will focus on key areas. For example, instead of Sally is going to read more fluently by the end of her year, say Sally will read orally at 80 to 100% words per minute with 95% accuracy. So you have a very specific goal, and now you're going to look at benchmarks to help keep track of that goal over the course of the year. So by November, Sally might be able to read orally 70 to 80 words per minute. By February, she might be able to read 80 to 90 words per minute. And by April, hopefully, she'll be able to read 90 to 100. So the goals, other goals might focus on other goals in reading. So perhaps phonics, they might have to do with math or writing, Some goals will have to do with social, emotional behavior, but they should all be specific and focused, like Sally's goal of reading. Some goals might have to do with independence, career, but they will all start with present levels. Next slide. So what are present levels? Present levels are what the current strengths are of your student. So where are the areas that need improvement? Because they're going to want to build on those present levels. They want to build on that strength. Areas of development that might need support. So academic and functional, progress towards goals. There should be progress monitoring to measure the progress towards each specific goal. So for instance, progress for any goal, transition or speech, OT, whatever those goals are under those particular chapters, you're gonna have to have sort of very specific and timetable type goals. You're also going to have to do the special considerations from section 1. So all these goals are also going to have to consider the special considerations. So the section 1 that pertains to is English their first or second language. Does this child require assistive technology? Do they have a hearing or a vision impairment? Or do they need a behavior plan for these goals, for them to be able to achieve these goals? So those are all things that also have to be taken into consideration when creating goals for your student. So the strengths, they would be, what are your strengths academically, socially, behaviorally? And it's important, you also have to put in the parental concerns. Parental concerns, Mandy had said to us at the last mini series that it's important to think, maybe you'd like to type something up and send it in and ask for it to be put in place verbatim, because there might be some very specific things that you have in there that you want to be sure your team focuses on. Next slide. One of the things that they would consider would be, to make your goals really work for you, is to consider it a SMART goal. So what a SMART goal is considered is something that is specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. So what does that look like? Okay, well, specific goals should clearly describe the skill that the student is trying to learn. They should never be vague. And the reason for that is, should you move to another school district or even a different teacher, it's really great when teachers want to support their students and, try to do all of these things that they know are best for their student, but if it's not in the IEP, it's not going to move on with them to the next teacher. Or it might not. It's always best to be very specific and have that in the IEP. The goals should be measurable. Goals should be observable and measurable. So if progress can be measured through standardized testing, curriculum-based measurement, work samples, and teacher data sheets, something that you can see over the course of time. Next slide. So SMART goals should be attainable. Attainable would mean goals represent a skill that is reachable for your child. That's not going to look the same for every child. The goals are based on present levels of performance. So where your child's now should grow. They shouldn't be based on curriculum standards or anything other than what your goal is looking to achieve for your child. Goals must be based on child strength, what your child's capable of. How can we build on their skills that are already there? And goals should be results oriented. They should be realistic and relevant. They should be unique to your child. That includes academics, communication, social skills, functional skills, and vocational goals as appropriate. What does it mean to be time-bound? Well, timely. So, for instance, a goal should be set out to see what a student can accomplish in a year of special education services or less. So you might see a goal that has an outcome after a year, but it might start with sort of separate benchmark periods of 5 weeks, 10 weeks, etc. And what are you hoping to accomplish at the end of this year? Next slide. Some other goals for special education you might see as related services or supplemental supports. So we know those as physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy. And these are things that are put in place to help our children to succeed academically in their independent social life, their independent living goals. And so all of those goals, you would also see something called location, frequency. It might have 30 minutes one time a week in the OT classroom for occupational therapy, as an example. Next slide. So goals might also be set pertaining to something like transition goals. So transition, as we discussed, it starts at age 14. You might be looking for goals pertaining to independent living. Independent living might include, transportation. Does my child know how to take a bus to get to work? Post-secondary education and training goals. What kind of skills do they have pertaining to the job that they're looking to have? And what are the things that we need to build on? Employment goals, independent living goals. Those are all things that might be pertaining to transition goals. All goals are going to be individualized. Goals for each of these sections that we talked about, they're going to be different for everybody. Aside from the age, everybody has different skills and strengths. And so the goals set should be SMART goals, but they're going to be different for everyone. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm going to stop the recording now so we could have some discussion and see if anybody has any questions, or we could go into any further detail. So let me see.